Hi, hello and welcome from wherever you join me today. Are you looking for a movie review channel with a difference? From somebody that will tell you all about the movie, including the facts, the fiction and the trivia of course, then you've come to the right place. I'm Jim Black from the Three Hats Stage Media channel and this is an edition of Pause for Thought, where I review one of my favourite movies and see what messages we can take from it and how we could use those insights in today's busy lives. As you can see from the light box just to my side, today's movie is Blinded by the Light and it's from 2019. It's from the book by Shahfraz Manzoor, Greetings from Berry Park, Race, Religion and Rock and Roll, and he adapted the screenplay with Gurinder Chadha and Paul Burgess. There's some interesting trivia coming up to do with Shahfraz and Gurinder a little bit later, so stay tuned for that. So let's have a look at who's in this movie as we get into the cast. As with any great movie, you need a great cast. So who's in it, what characters do they play, and where have I seen them before? The main role is taken by Vivek Kala. Now he plays Javid, and you'll know him from Beecham House, as well as Next of Kin. And this is where Gurinder spotted him and decided to use him for the role. There's Dean Charles Chapman. He plays Matt, Javid's best friend. And you'll know him from 1917, the war epic, as well as Game of Thrones, if you follow that series. Nell Williams, she plays Eliza, the love interest. And you'll know her from Deep Water, and she played Katie in Elizabeth is Missing, which is going to be a movie review of mine at some point in the future. Aaron Fagura. Now he plays Roops and he's another best friend of Javid. Now you'll know him from Unforgotten, which is a really good TV series, and if you've got Catch Up TV or a streaming service, then I suggest you find it and download because they are really very good. You'll know him from him as well as The Informer. There's Kulvinder Gill. He plays Malik and he's the father to Javid, and you'll know him from Beecham House as well. He was also in Holby City, as well as Still Open All Hours. Nikita Mehta, she plays Shazia, and she's the sister of Javid. Now you may know her from that great TV series, 24, and apparently she appears in hours 4 to 5 and 5 to 6, but you'll know what I mean if you watch that. There's Meera Ganatra, and she plays Javid's mum, Noor. Now you may know her from Premature, and something that sounds really good, which is called 3 Dots and a Dash, which I must watch at some point. Robin, he plays Matt's dad, and he's greatly cast in this movie. If you watch it, you'll find out why. He was also in The Road Trip with Steve Coogan, as well as a character that he created a few years ago called Keith Barrett. And if you know Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, he played the traffic warden. There's David Heyman. He plays Mr. Evans, and he's a neighbour of Javid's, and he's also a great inspiration to him. Now he's been in many things over the years, but he played Malcolm McLaren in the movie Sid and Nancy. There's Hayley Atwell. She plays an influence to Javid again, the English teacher Miss Clay. Now you'll know her from Christopher Robin. She played Evelyn, and that was a movie review of mine a few months ago, which you should catch after this. She was also Peggy Carter in the Marvel Universe, and many of you will know her from that. She's also going to be in Mission Impossible 7 and 8, but that's something for the future and you'll have to watch out for that. Billy Barrett plays the young Matt, and if you want to see child acting at its best, then I suggest you watch A Responsible Child. It's a great TV series, and again it'll be on a streaming service near you somewhere. Ronak Singh Burgess Chadha. Now he plays the young Javid. He's also the son of Gurinder, who wrote the screenplay for Blinded by the Light, and she also wrote the screenplay for Beecham House. A little bit of early trivia for you there. So I ask, is it right? Are dreams important? And are you alone when you have them? And can opposites really get on and find that thing in common that we all need in life? Let's get into this movie review and find out. Are hopes and dreams wrong? And are you alone in having them? Well, no, of course you're not. We all have them, from a young age right the way through to very old. They help us focus on the future and try and get us to somewhere we would like to be. The trouble is, we have families and friends and influences from the outside world. All of these put pressure on us and help take us down roads that we might not want to go down. We're going to follow Javid and his journey from being a teenager and all those things and influences around him that are shaping him. He knows where he wants to go, or he's got a good idea of it. And when he finds the music of Bruce Springsteen and the words that inspire him and motivate him into the future, what could possibly happen for him? Let's see who he meets, the influences and where they come from, unlikely some of them, and follow him through this movie review. What a great movie this is. It's inspiring, uplifting and motivating, and that's why it's joining that pile of ever-growing favourite movies of mine. It starts in 1980 on a hillside overlooking the M1 heading towards London, and we find the two boys, Matt and Javid, who are best friends forever. It's Javid's birthday and he's got a Rubik's Cube and a journal which he's going to write in each and every day with all his thoughts, hopes and dreams. We then jump to 1987. It's the end of the summer and Javid is just finishing his summer job in a sandwich packing factory somewhere near where he lives. We then see him riding home to the music of It's a Sin by the Pet Shop Boys. He gets back to the Close in Bury Park and finds Matt, who's just come back from Ibiza. He's got a girlfriend, which Javid would love to have, but obviously can't because he's a very shy type of person. Javid's dad comes home. He's a typical English Pakistani that's come over and made a life for himself and his family. He's a good man, but he's got beliefs that maybe Javid doesn't share. We then see Javid go up to his room and continue writing in his diary. The camera pans to the shelf in his bedroom and we see diaries, yes, from 1980 all the way up, plus lots of other writings and poems. Javid is called downstairs to get his birthday gifts. And they're all those things that your auntie would buy you that you might not necessarily want. But you say thank you and you have the family picture and you blow your candle out. Malik, Javid's dad, tells him that he's different. He's not the same as Matt's dad. Matt's dad is one of those that's got a market stall and he's quite a happy-go-lucky guy where everything's going to work out anyway. Whereas Malik believes that they've got to earn the right to be where they are, which is ridiculous in any sort of world. He's a proud man, he's a hard-working man, he provides for his family. But he's still attached to the old beliefs from his old family, which he always wanted to be different from, like we all do. You know, hopes and dreams, like I was talking about earlier. Javid then decides to go over and see Matt. And they have a chat about what life's all about, where they're going to go and what's going to happen. Matt is just like his father. He's in a band as well. He wants to be a musician and Javid writes song lyrics for him. But they're not very good and the band's not very good either because neither of the boys have found their way yet. The next day we see Javid being taken to college. His dad tells him to stay away from the girls and concentrate hard to become the person that his dad wants him to be. But as we know, we don't want to become like our fathers or any members of the family that we know because we all think we know better. It's a big eye-opener to Javid going to college. It's not school anymore. It's completely different. You've still got to study hard, but it's up to you. It's not up to them to teach you. If you want to learn, then get on with it and do it. He's not told his dad what he's going to study. His dad believes that he's going to study economics and things like that and get the results that he needs to become those people his dad wants him to be. However, Javid thinks he wants to be a writer. That's because of all the poetry he's been writing over the years, the journals he's been keeping, and he feels he's quite good at it. He joins the class run by Miss Clay. She's going to be a major influence in his life. She's going to help him in ways that he doesn't even know. And he also meets Eliza for the first time. Things couldn't be better for him. At lunchtime, he sits on his own, writing his journal. And Roops, the boy who he bumped into earlier, that would become his lifelong friend, comes over and talks to him. He says if he wants to change his mind about anything, he should listen to some music. But not any kind of music, but proper music. Good old rock and roll with roots deep in society. And the only person that can talk to you in that way is the boss, Bruce Springsteen. Javid takes the tapes and puts them on one side and says that he will listen to them at some point in the future. Some more music is being played as we move out of the lunchtime. Died in Your Arms Tonight. Another great track from that particular era. Miss Clay asks Javid what he wants to be. I want to be a writer, miss. I want to write. I've written poetry. I've written journals. But my dad, he doesn't want me to be. He wants me to be something else. And she tells him he can be anything he wants to be as long as he puts in the hard work. And that's the case in all parts of life. The next night, Matt's having a party. He invites Javid, who says he'll go, and has always said he'll go, but he never can because of his dad. But all Javid wants to be is that teenager, being that person, and exploring the world. We see Javid back at college again, and we know all he wants to be is a writer. Miss Clay's trying to inspire him. She says she wants to read all his poems. And he says, my poems? You can't read them. They're mine. Will you let me read them and I'll decide? He goes to see the college paper. He wants to write for them, and they don't want him either. What is going to happen? Javid is getting a little bit upset at this point. Things aren't going well. He wants to be that writer. It's the thing that's driving him all the way through his life from that early age. But Vauxhall Motors have just announced major redundancies, and that means his dad has lost his job. There's very little money coming into the house, and there's pressure on him to get some sort of work so that he can help provide for the family. There's a wedding coming up, so money needs to be found for that as well. Like I said, it's a distressing time, upsetting time for Javid, and one stormy night, Javid decides to throw everything away, all his journals and all his poetry. It's the night of the storm. It's the 16th of October, 1987. It's an infamous night in weather history. The weatherman Michael Fish predicts that there will be no hurricane. And as he goes outside, the winds are strong and it whips all the papers and whizzes them all over the place. He goes back to his room. He remembers he's got some tapes to listen to. He wants to shut himself off in the world, so he puts his headphones on, puts the cassette in his Walkman and listens. And on comes Bruce Springsteen. And just as Javid wants to give up, Dancing in the Dark, which seems very apt for this moment in the movie. It feels like he is dancing in the dark and getting nowhere. He listens to the words. He listens to another track and finds inspiration. He runs back outside, the wind is still strong, the hurricane is blowing, and he collects up as much of his poems as he can. The next day we see him going into college. He piles all the poems on Miss Clay's desk and says, there you go. And she says, right, I'll have a look at them. While this is all happening, another song from the boss, The Promised Land. This is a great soundtrack, and I might keep saying that all the way through this movie review, but it really is. But we'll talk more about it a little bit later. There's another great bit here where the neighbour Mr. Evans knocks on the door. It's probably a couple of days later, and he's found one of the poems that Javid threw away. He's read it, he thinks it's inspirational. He tells Javid's dad, in front of Javid and his mum, that this man should be a writer. He's got a great way of putting things and the world should know that. After Mr. Evans goes, there's a big sort of argument again with Javid's dad, and we find that there's more dad issues, there's more son issues, and things aren't going well, but that happens in a lot of cases. We later on find out that maybe they were right, but we'd never admit it, would we? Javid tells his dad that he has got a job. It's unpaid and it's working for the Herald, but it's work experience that he needs and he wants. His dad's not happy with this and still insists that he should get a job and help the family out, because that's what we do in families. We all help each other out at times of need. There's a scene next where Javid and Roops, who have become very close, go to a cafe in the Arndale Centre in Luton. They sit in a seat, they're having a nice time chatting about the world and Bruce Springsteen music, when a bunch of thugs come in and demand that they move because that's their seat. They've always had that seat and they don't like their kind in here. Now that should never go on, but it always does, because people's prejudices have grown from many different reasons. We should always accept everybody. I just want to say that at this point, for who they are and what they are. So now we move to one of my favourite bits of the movie, and Javid gets a Saturday job. It's on Matt's dad's market stall, working with Matt of course, and they're going to sell clothes to everybody that comes along. Javid's appearance has changed slightly. Now they've done this partly for this scene, but he's wearing a denim jacket, he's got a short sleeve shirt on, he's got blue jeans on, and his hair's done slightly differently. He's almost looking like Bruce Springsteen himself. He glances, he's happy. He sees Eliza in the distance. He puts his headphones on, he presses play on his Walkman, and on comes Thunder Road. Now many people believe this is one of the greatest tracks that Bruce has ever sang. It is one of my favourites as well. Matt's dad is a huge Springsteen fan, and we find a little montage here where they're singing Thunder Road, Matt's dad, Javid, and Bruce in the distance, on the cassette of course, and the market starts to dance and everything's happy. We're moving towards Eliza, and a little bit of poetic licence here, where Javid and Eliza start to dance. The scene finishes, and Javid does actually ask Eliza out for lunch, which she agrees to. They have an interesting conversation about who are we living for. Eliza can live for herself and be what she wants, whereas in the culture that Javid lives in, the children live for the family, and it's their job to look after the family, and so on and so on. She wants Javid to stay, but Javid says he can't. He turns to walk away, and then we hear Prove It All Night by Bruce again. And Javid turns and decides to stay, against his family's wishes, but then he wants to be himself, like I keep saying. Back at the Herald, where Javid is working, another reporter asks him to come and do a piece with him because it's about the local temple, and he might be able to help with the story, which he agrees to. Back at the college, we see Roops and him talking, and they want to get into the music room that plays across the college campus and change some of the music that keeps being played. They get into the music room and they put on Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. They put it on the loudspeaker system, go out the room, lock the door, and we see them running through the campus with everybody jumping out of the way. We see them running through Luton Town Centre. Eliza's joined them, and it's a great scene, a very happy time. Javid writes some poetry for Eliza and gets up very early, goes over to her house and pins it on her bedroom window. Luckily she's sleeping in the ground floor, or else it might have been a bit more difficult if she'd been upstairs. Javid gets invited for dinner with her parents, who are very middle class, you know, that type of people, of that type of era. And you can't believe, looking back, that we were all like that at some point. But luckily for us, life moves on and things happen for the better, hopefully. Tensions are running high at home. He has a fallout with his dad again about what he wants to be and what his dad wants him to be. Javid's mum, Noor, is working day and night. She's sewing things faster than she could sew them, just to try and earn a little bit extra money for the family. If you remember, the wedding's coming up and all's got to be done very soon. Shazia asks Javid to take her somewhere special. And when they get there, Javid can't believe it. It's called an all-dayer, and it's where lots of people that don't quite fit in the normal life because of parents and influencers again, go to let their hair down and just be themselves. A great uplifting scene again, and Shazia is forever grateful that Javid has done that for her. Malik, Javid's dad, is getting very upset. His wife is doing his hair, putting in dye to make him look younger, You know, we've all got those grey bits appearing. And he breaks down. He gets very upset. But a wife, being a wife, she comforts him and soothes him and tells him that everything will be all right. But he still can't believe it. He's the man of the family, and because he's not that man now, because he's not got a job and providing, he feels a failure. It happens in a lot of cases, and many of us feel like that at times. Javid and Matt fall out. Again, things are changing, beliefs are changing, ideas are changing. And sometimes we go through those little bits of difficulties before we can get out the other side. Mr. Evans overhears the argument, and he tells Javid that friends deserve to be listened to, even if you're still not friends at the end of it. But give each other a chance to explain. Javid goes to see Matt and try and sort things out, and it makes things better between them. So the day of the wedding comes. It's a big event. It's a show. You've got guests coming. You want them to think good of you, and you want them to have a great time. The only trouble is for Javid that the day of the wedding is the day that Bruce Springsteen tickets are going on sale for his up-and-coming concert in London. So somehow Javid has got to get across town, get to the record shop and buy the tickets. And that's an old idea, and I can remember doing it myself. So off he goes with the idea that Shazia will cover for him and he'll get back to the wedding at some point very soon. They all set off in their cars, got the ribbons on and the flowers in, and they're driving along. There's a march happening. The march is against people's ideas of what other people's ideas should be. It's not a good scene, and it's something that happened quite a lot. The wedding party are attacked. Malik gets hit in the face. Eliza tries to sort things out, and Malik finds out that Javid has not been there. It's a bad day, all round. And what could get worse than that? Back at home, after the wedding, they're trying to sort things out. Javid's dad is very upset. What have you been doing? What's going on? I've been to buy tickets. Where did you get the money from? I got them for a piece I wrote for the local paper. You kept the money from us. We needed that money. Those sort of things. Javid says, I'm not happy. There's a knock on the door. Mr. Evans is there. He's got the local paper and Javid has been published as a writer. Everybody should be happy, but they're not. The next thing Mr. Evans goes and Javid is told in no uncertain terms that that must stop and he must be the man that his dad wants him to be, or else get out. What happens is he runs upstairs, gets his stuff and off he goes. The whole world is out of sync in this particular life. Nobody's talking to each other, everybody's upset with each other, and where will we go from here? While all this has been going on, Miss Clay has sent in some of the poems that Javid has done to a competition. And guess what? He's won that competition. So he has to tell his dad that he's going to America because he's going to speak at a conference at a college over in New Jersey. His dad forbids it. But again, he says he can't stop him and it's going to happen. There's photographs taken of the two boys in all the places that Bruce would have gone to when he lived there in New Jersey a few years ago. It's a great time for him. It's a time that he can forget everything else that's going on. But he's got to come home at some point. The next thing we see is the closing part of the movie. So it's prize giving at the school. Javid is being honoured because he's been a model student. Eliza has already been round to see the parents of Javid to explain things. But will they turn up? Well, halfway through his speech, of course they turn up. Javid puts his speech down and speaks from the heart. And at the end of it, things are reconciled. The end of one story is always the beginning of a new. Things can only get better from here once we all understand each other. And if we can find that common ground and also believe that dreams are important, no matter whose they are, and help people try and achieve them, things can only get better. And now let's look at some of the trivia attached to this movie. Let's start with the trivia about Shafraz and Gurinder. If you remember at the start, I said there was some interesting trivia about them. Well, at a red carpet do for Bruce, the pair of them stood. Bruce came along the line and he knows Shafraz very well because he knows he's one of his most loyal fans. He comes over to talk to him and they say, "I've written a story and I want to use your music." Bruce says, "No problem. Talk to my people and we'll sort it." Bruce let them use all his music royalty free, which is great for any artist to do and not done very often. Another bit of trivia for you is Bruce Springsteen is a very popular artist both here and in space. A lot of astronauts choose his music to listen to while they're up in orbit. Did you also know that there's a minor planet up there called 23990 Springsteen? I can't tell you exactly where it is, but if you look, you might just see it. Another bit of trivia I have for you is that Rob Brydon is also a huge Springsteen fan in real life, and not just as Matt's dad. In a pub, him and his mate got up one night and sang a perfect rendition of Thunder Road, which is why it was used in the movie in the market scene. Another bit for you is that did you know that Stephen King's book, The Stand, has a character called Larry Underwood? Now, anybody that reads it says that it must be Bruce Springsteen because it's to do with the music industry. Stephen King has gone on record and said that if there was ever a movie made of it, Bruce Springsteen would be the perfect part. Did you also know that there's a TV series planned called Radio Nowhere? It's based on the novel by Stephen King, and yes, it's the track from the Magic album by Bruce Springsteen himself. The music in this movie is absolutely brilliant, and that's why I've already downloaded the soundtrack. You've got the Pet Shop Boys, Madness, Level 42, Cutting Crew. You've also got Mental as Anything, plus all the Bruce Springsteen songs that I've talked about and many more. So if you want great music and you like that type of music, then I suggest you download it. I hope you've enjoyed this movie review. And if you want to know where my thoughts and inspirations come from, please click on one of the links in the bio below and that will take you for a closer look. If you want to subscribe to our channel and join our community, then hit that button and click on that notification bell to find out when I upload again. Comments are always welcome. I'll get back to you as and when I can, and if you can give me a thumbs up anytime, I'd appreciate that too. I've been Jim Black for the Three Hats Stage Media channel for this edition of Pause for Thought. See you again soon.